Hey Leslie, how are you?
Happy to be here. I know any time with you is going to be an amazing time.
I love talking to you. We've spoken on summits and things before, and I just said offline, anything that you share is going to be valuable for the parents and maybe the educators who are listening. So I am really excited to have a chat with you. We're talking about raising problem solvers versus direction followers. So this is going to be a really good conversation. But before we begin, maybe let people know a little bit about you and your work if they don't know yet.
Sure. So I've been around for a really long time, 20 years actually. So I feel a little bit like a pioneer in this business of parenting coaching or neurodivergent coaching for students. I own a company called Order Out of Chaos, and we are global and we are virtual. So you do not need to be by me. And we focus on, I like to say, the neurodivergent student. We tend to focus on the student aspect of things. And our mission is really to help parents help their students be successful both in learning and in life. And we do that through our products, our programs, our workshops, our webinars, and our coaching. And you can find all of that information on our website. And personally, I speak, I write a weekly column for Attitude Magazine. And I created an academic planner or a series of academic planners that teach students time management skills. So that's a big one too. So I do a lot of different things. I write books, all that good stuff.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of it?
What's my favorite? Believe it or not, I just had this question yesterday. My favorite thing would probably not be what you would think. My favorite thing is when we run a lot of group parent coaching cohorts. And I think for me, that is my absolute favorite thing. We do a lot of one-on-one, but I do the groups because what I love is parents helping parents, parents helping, feeling that they're not alone, learning from each other, but it's magic. It's just absolute magic. And in my 20 years, so much has changed. Obviously, when I started, there were no podcasts or webinars or conferences or anything like that. I don't even think the internet was even a big deal. I'm sorry, I am that old. But what hasn't changed is the need for community and connection and conversation. That has not changed. So for me, I know people like, really, that's what you love the most about what you do? I said, it is because I love watching parents helping parents, feeling less alone, feeling part of something bigger than them, feeling validated.
And I hope people get that from the podcast and other podcasts and things. Even just listening, you are hearing that. I mean, Leslie, you speak, we just had wild conversations offline about the places in the world you have gone to speak and share your knowledge and your wisdom. This is a global, challenges with parenting is global. Challenges with supporting neurodivergent kids and helping them bring out the best in themselves, that's global. So no one here is alone, I want to say.
No, and you've built that too, like your community, your connection to the people you serve, and also with your podcast and your books and all of that. I agree with you completely. Like parenting connection has, I think, spanned all countries and races and religion and all of that. It is so fascinating to me when you really drill it down that that's really what we're all in need of.
Yeah.
Feel less alone in this journey.
Yes. So we're talking about raising problem solvers versus direction followers. Why? Why
That's
did you?
fun to say, right? It's fun to say.
Yeah. So tell us what the difference is with problem solvers and direction followers. Yeah, why this?
Why this? Because so when I tell my scenario, what I love so much about this scenario is parents go, "Do you live in my house?" And I go, "Of course I live in your house. It's my house. It's your house. It's everybody's house." And it started, and interestingly, my trajectory is I went from working with families, who had children with ADHD and other sorts of diagnoses to becoming an academic life coach, to a parenting coach, and all of that. But yet I think it spans everybody. I don't think you have to be raising a child who's neurodivergent to feel that need to want your children to problem solve on their own, to think on their own. But interestingly for me, it started from a very personal place, not from a professional place. So like I would work all day and I would come home and I used to say my children would line up. They would line up and there would be Eli and the Madeline and maybe the babysitter and my husband virtually from like, let's say his office, and even the dog would line up. And there I would be going like, okay, right? Like this, let's go. Okay, Eli, you go get your soccer bag. You go get your water bottle. Don't forget, Jenny's coming in 10 minutes. You go outside and wait. Maddie, and it would go on. And then the babysitter, you're going to drive Maddie, come back, walk the dog. And my husband would be on the phone. Lovely, but what do you need me to do? That would be, what do you need me to do for you? Interesting, for you. What would you need? And finally, I went, my brain, my executive functioning brain, which is the planning, the prioritizing, the remembering, the organizing, the time management portion of the program, friends, is getting like a workout, like Peloton on steroids, right? I always say, I wish the other half of my body would catch up with my brain. And I was lucky I didn't have defiant children, meaning they were very willing to sit there and say, and listen to me tell them where to go, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what they needed, and have no, and have no stake in it. Absolutely no stake. So they weren't defiant. They weren't the kids going, no, I'm not, but they were very compliant. Okay, mom's here. And mom got really tired. And I know for a fact, everyone listening is going, oh my God, she lives in my house. Because all of our houses are like that. That emotional labor is very, very exhausting. So I had to figure it out. And what I figured out, and this is part of my training as a coach, is that if I stopped talking and questioned more, that it would prompt their brains to have to figure some stuff out. Now, it's not like one day I just said, okay, I'm out. I got my margarita, I'm on the couch with People Magazine, I'm all good. And left them to their own devices. Oh, how we all wish that would happen. And if that was the case, I would be in Aruba, sitting, owning the island, if you know what I mean. It doesn't work that easily. You must make sure your children truly understand what it is they need to do. You must have supports in place. They must be external. They must understand how to do it, what you want. But that prompting, not of what, but asking that question allowed their brain to solidify information, to figure things out, to form habits, to have what I call almost like that future awareness piece of the puzzle. So I switched my whole way of communicating and talked less and started questioning more. It is, and we're in it for the long haul, friends. It is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It is a long game, but it worked. But you have to do it in a way like you have to meet them where they live. You have to figure out what they're capable of, what they need to prompt performance. That's what we call it, prompting performance. So what do they need do they need visual cues? Do they need something that will help them remind? But that's what I did. I started working on almost, how do I say it? Strengthening their brain. The brain is a muscle. So like everything else, it's got to be trained. So that's how it like light bulb moment for me. And it's been something I've been teaching ever since.
Wow. Do you have a story or an example, something that comes to mind, maybe from your own kids or from, the families that you've worked with that makes this really sink in?
Yeah, so I have lots of different scenarios that you can use. So here's like, I see it all the time in our work. So this is a vague one, but I think it's more evergreen. Like everyone can probably figure this one out, or can not figure it out. Everyone could like relate to this one, where it's the morning and you're saying to your child, do you have your keys? Do you have your wallet? Do you have your cell phone? Do you have your lunch? I'm nauseous already, right? From that litany. And you got to remember too, they stop listening after a while. So what I need you to do is first figure out, what is it my child needs so that they can remember or visualize or go to, so that they see what it is they need. So they have to do a run through, which I used to do all the time with my own children. I'm like, okay, let's do a run through. Let's get it all set up. I'm gonna say to you, it's morning. And instead of going, do you have your cell phone keys, wallet, library book, sneakers, clarinet, and all that? The one question I would ask is, where do you need to go to find the sheet, the checklist, the information, whatever it is, for you to be able to get out of the house? You see the difference? So what I'm really doing is working on them becoming less prompt dependent. So I'm eliminating this dialoguing, and I'm just leading them to where they can find the information. It's okay to ask that. Where do you need to go? How do you see your room when you walk out the door in the morning? It's a great one. How do you envision your room? How do you visualize it? And maybe you need to take a photo of like the room, whatever, how you want it. I was very lax. I didn't care if they made beds. I could give a, you know what, I couldn't care. To me, that was not my battle. But my point is, if that is your battle, then you need to take a picture of a bed made, or lights off, or dishes in the sink, or whatever it is. So you want to switch the dialogue, and instead of asking, do you have, where can you go to find? What is it you need to do? Do you remember? So it changed. You see so that's a little more like evergreen.
Yeah.
Then we do some fun things. I know you and I talked about this before we came on. I like asking, if your child asks you a question, what that really is showing me is your child's brain is only maybe capable of like lifting a 2-pound weight. And what we want to do is strengthen it to like a 3-pound or a 4-pound weight. So when your child is sitting in your kitchen, again, we've all been down this road, and opens the freezer. My example are waffles, because that was my house. All about the waffles. It was all about my Eli, he's 25 now, and I do have permission to tell the story. I think that's an important parenting thing. As your kids get older, it's not your stories, it's theirs, and you need to get their permission. So I always like to say that he's 25, he's a full-on man, and I am allowed to tell the waffle stories because he thinks they're funny. So, and he would open the freezer and he would just say to no one in particular, where are the waffles? And what that meant for me was that his brain wasn't stretching, right? The brain wasn't capable of getting there. It needed help. It needed training. So most of us would either go, oh, honey, the waffles are on the left side behind the ice cream. No, a little more. No, do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? There you go. Or maybe someone else in your family is going, are you kidding me? How long have you lived in this house and you still can't find the bleeping waffles? You're the one who's right. What I want you to do is I want you to ask a question, because again, that's going to prompt the brain to stretch and think. If you were a waffle, where would you live? Do you remember the last time you saw it? Are waffles hot or cold? Notice I'm not telling them where they are, but all of these things are going to help what's called working memory. Working memory is like super gluing. Wasn't that attractive, that noise? You're super gluing information into the brain and having it stick. And the stick part is what's important, because telling is not teaching and listening is not learning. So you've got to get that information in there, and it's got to super glue it. So if their brain has to do the figuring out, they are more likely to super glue the answer to the brain, which means the next time they open that freezer, they're going to remember where the waffles are. Does that make sense?
So powerful. Yes. I wish everyone could see my face when Leslie is talking. I'm just grinning from ear to ear, and I'm nodding like a crazy person, because it makes so much sense to me. And I did say, maybe again, this is before we hit record, that the waffle story and, asking your child a question is something now that I do. I learned from you, and I do it all the time. If my kids are like, Mom, where are my socks? And I'm like, if you were a sock, where would you be?
Where would you be? Right? Where do socks live? Right. And you listen, I know we're busy, but you have to, you got to slow it down and actually ask these questions, because the payoff will happen. Because what you're doing is there's like, it's almost like it's almost like you're storing information and it will eventually come back out
Absolutely.
When needed.
Yeah. We're doing, as you said before, Leslie, this is a long game. Like we are parenting to raise adults in the end. Like we want them to be able to think for themselves, make decisions for themselves, problem solve for themselves, and do that kind of critical questioning and thinking and wondering and getting to those solutions. They're not going to, I mean, yes, that will happen, like even if we don't do this, but we are supporting ourselves and taking that mental load off because we're passing it to them gradually with an age appropriate, how much they can handle.
What they can handle. And you're also, and I know like when I think of you, I think of emotional intelligent parenting. But what I also like about this is none of it is punitive. None of it, you're teaching in a way that is helpful, but it's not punitive. You're not, that's why that answer of, are you kidding me? Like where, like you've lived in this, that's like sidebar nonsense. We don't need that. That's like useless to me. I want you to go back and ask. And this is the other thing I really want to talk about, if it's okay. Can I?
Yeah.
So, because what I've really done with all of this, and this is like years of training and years of listening to parents, is like really tap into the vignettes that happen in your household, the everyday things. And I think that in a way, and that's always been my mantra, particularly working with neurodivergent families, it's not always about when there's a crisis. Actually, it's about the everyday. And what I like about the everyday is like that's when the waters are calm. And you get more teaching and more listening and more learning when the waters are calm. So we want to try to do this in these like everyday scenarios when they're benign and nothing is like, I wish you could see me, like wrong. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like we're not in crisis mode here. Like you can't find the waffles. Like, okay, your kid might be a little bit like frustrated, but it's not a life or death matter, right? It's not, right. We can handle it. So the other thing that I see happen all the time, and I even myself had to like, and I have flown and grown children, I still have to like watch myself. A lot of times as parents, we interpret a statement from our children as a question. And what we're doing is we're taking on, and I know I'm using phrases like executive functioning brain, and these are obviously part of, but your child doesn't have to be neurodivergent. We all have an executive functioning brain, and our executive functioning brain basically controls how we organize information, our time management, our effort, our initiation, and our memory here. But some of our kids have weaker executive functions than others, which is what makes some of our kids neurodivergent. I just want to give that as like a 2-second explanation. So your kid might say to you, I'm hungry, I'm tired, thirsty, I can't find. Notice that wasn't a question. It's I can't find, not where is. And what we do is we hear that because we're problem solvers and we're fixers and we are parents, right? And we want to like jump on in. And what I want you to do, and I'm saying this in the nicest possible way, is slow your roll. In a nice way, slow your roll. Breathe. Unless your house is on fire, your child is bleeding. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I would say? We say, calm your farm.
You're Australian.
Or wait, have you heard relax your slacks?
Yes, I have actually. But I am such a New Yorker. I think you can all hear the accent. And I'm like, all right, slow your roll, dude. Like that's mine. Like there's a no nonsense to me. The New York City girl comes out, slow your roll. Your child goes, I'm thirsty. We don't need to like list every single thing we just bought at Costco. We just don't. Oh, sorry, we don't. And when I say that, I hear everybody laugh because everyone's like, oh my goodness. Freaking lives in my house. Of course I live in your house. All of us. Oh, you're hungry? I just, and we give the litany of what's in the pantry or what's in the fridge. Your child didn't ask you anything. So why are you answering? And what you're doing in that is you're taking like you're almost like taking their executive functioning brain and absorbing it into your own, because what you're doing is figuring it out. And I want you to not do that. Okay, I get bossy when I talk about this. This is again my New York Leslie coming out. Like I get a little bossy. I want them to figure it out. Now you can prompt them with a question. Is there something you need? I love that question. It's nice. It's not punitive again. But if your child says to you a statement, I'm hungry, I can't find, I'm thirsty, whatever it is, I don't want you to answer them with solutions because they did not ask you a question. So I would like you to ask them a question. What is it you need? Is there something you need from me? It's a really good question. And you're going to watch their brain and like all of a sudden they're going to go, oh, I'm hungry. Can I have? See what I mean? Like that's how we build muscle. I want you to think of a little brain with dumbbells going like that. Well, you can't see me, but lifting his little biceps.
Yeah.
Because that's what all of this is doing. It is strengthening that brain muscle.
Wow.
So that when they're hungry, they don't need to ask you or say a statement. They can, and we start with the easy, obviously. And as we get older, it gets a little harder.
This reminds me of a saying I once heard, don't know where it was from. Probably just from someone else, not the original person.
Okay.
Small hinges swing big doors. Like, yes, these little tweaks and changes that Leslie's talking about build and build and build. And before you know it, you are noticing that your kids are making some of these choices for themselves, leaning on you less, and you have a smaller cognitive load, and you're like, oh,
exactly.
Oh,
because there are things, we know this to be true. There are things that our kids need that are super impactful. And we so need to be there. And we need to be there with all of our heart and all of our brain power, right? For the big things. I'm not saying even for the little, but for the big things. And I see it so often that we are so exhausted by the little things, the constant, like, where do I go? What do I do? What time that when it is time for, being front and center, we're so depleted. Here's an expression we use, put a fork in me, I'm done, right? Like, that when we're so depleted to show up for the things that we really do need, where our kids really do need our full time and attention.
That's big. I hope that landed with everyone.
I see it all the time. I hear it all the time. I was just telling you about, well, I just said it too, like what I love about, groups is that's what I hear so much in my group is people are like, I'm so tired of like the constant reminding, the constant like telling that when I do need to be there to empower or to support or to help figure out, I have nothing left. And that's where all of this comes from is we want to offload as much of the little things we can and empower them and empower our kids to be able to do this. So this is like what I spend a lot of time on problem solving. And the other thing too, and I really want to say this because I don't know if this is really teaching, but it's more of a philosophy. I feel like the word problem needs like a rebrand, right?
Yeah.
Such a negative connotation. And I talk a lot about this to my parents too, like how many times we automatically say, well, that's a problem. And it's not a problem. It might be something, oh, well, we have to figure it out. Or, all right, I need to think about it. Or, okay, that's challenging, but we can work on it. So it needs to be reframed. So not everything is a problem. That's number one, because it has such a bad connotation. And what we know about problems is that they're to be avoided because they make us uncomfortable. And I don't believe in that. I believe that problems can be good for us because we want our kids to be problem solvers. So believe it or not, when I do coach, I don't really coach students anymore. I used to. I would start every single session with, tell me a problem you had and how did you solve it this week? And I would tell parents I do that, and they're like, you do that? I said, yes, because it's coming from a place of strength, not of a place of like icky. Sorry, I know that's not professional, but I'm a straight shooter. It's not icky. It's okay. And you can even ask your little ones, like, tell me something that might have happened to you. How did you solve it? Wow, what a great problem solver you are. Like, problem solving needs to come from this place of like strength, not from this like, oh my God, that's a problem we have, that's a problem. That's going to be a problem. Because when we do that constantly, what it does is send our kids a message like, problems are like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. So some of it does come from us a little bit.
Can you tell us a bit about that concept of the emotional rewards and how they can be more effective than the tangible rewards, especially for neurodivergent kids?
A little more geared to neurodivergent children because so we talked a little bit about working memory, but it's memory in general. Our children, particularly those that are neurodivergent, I want to make sure that I'm saying this in my lane. We kind of say that they live in two worlds. They live in the now and the not now. That's it. And so this not now is like so far away that they can't see it. So if it's Monday and we're saying we really want you to, like, if you get up this morning on your own, let's say, right? That's a big one. If you can get up on your own and it's Monday, I'll give you the keys to the car on Friday, or you'll get to go play with Johnny on, you know what I mean? For a kid that is neurodivergent, that is as nebulous as you can get. It is nowhere in their like orbit, right? And when you build habits, all of this is habit building, habit forming. And to build a habit, you need build a routine. You need three things. You need a cue, something that is going to like visually remind you of, okay, I see this, I need to do that. That's why if you notice with the problem solving, I say there must be something that they can go see. When you see a cue, it promotes the habit, right? Okay, the action, habit, action, whatever it is. But to solidify it, to really bring it home, there must be a reward. And we as parents tend to focus way more on the tangible. We'll give you ice cream. You'll get 10 more minutes of television. You'll get your phone. You'll get the keys to the car. It's for older kids too. But what we need is something way more immediate. And what we can do that's immediate is emotional rewards. It's praising. It's telling them in the moment and at that time that they did a great job, being specific and being tangible. You don't need like a marching band and a parade, because we don't want to oversell it. But what actually solidifies habits more is emotional versus tangible. It's turning around and saying, wow, I know that was really hard for you, and you really did such a good job by X. Or wow, I didn't have to prompt you to get up this morning. Or wow, you didn't hit your sister on the way, out. You know what I mean by hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the car, or all of those things. And we don't look at that as a way of saying, if I say that, will that build the habit over and over again? But yet it actually is something that when your child hears that over and over again, it does end up in their working memory. They do remember it. And again, long game, but it promotes that habit of like, okay, I didn't get yelled at this morning. I didn't get, right? Believe it or not, an emotional reward is also what I call the knots. It's not staring down the wrath of a parent, knowing I'm not going to get yelled at this morning. That is very habit forming. And parents ask me all the time, why do my kids build bad habits so much faster than good habits? Because if you think about it, bad habits come immediately. I'm going to use me as an example. I have to write an article. I still don't want to write an article. I'm going to go on Nordstrom.com. It's a bad habit. It is. And then an hour goes by and I've lost that time. But bad habits come immediately. We reward ourselves immediately when something is painful.
Wow. Have you read, yeah, it does. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I have.
I only just, so I haven't read it. This is I'm
Yeah.
going on a left on a tangent here, but I haven't read it, but I heard a podcast and about, I think it was actually Simon Sinek was interviewing him, and everything that you have just mentioned, those 3 or 4 things that are required to build a habit and create behavior change. I think it's called the 4 laws of behavior change, something like that. And there are these 4 sort of rules to build better habits. The first one is make it obvious. The second one is make it attractive. The third one is make it easy. And the fourth one is make it satisfying. So everything you have just said ticks the boxes.
Right.
Make it, give yourself a cue, make it front and center, make it easy, quick. Like this stuff works for brains, especially neurodivergent brains.
Yes, and that's really listen, I read that recently, but this is more my lane of, because we sit a lot in one, it takes, unfortunately for neurodivergent children, it takes a lot more time to build a habit, but we get asked that question all the time. Why is it not happening? I'm giving a reward 5 days later. I'm like, 5 days later? No.
Okay. That doesn't work for me. I'm like, nah, stuff it.
It doesn't work. And my favorite story is, and I'm going to give it very quickly, is, and this was a parent. So the verbiage is from the parent, not from me. I want to make sure people hear me that, because I don't speak like this, but this parent did, and they're allowed because it's their child. In my meaning, in the safety of our one-on-one. But she was having a very difficult time with her child, and her child was older. He was 15. And she felt that, one of the biggest things is he was very self-centered. So he never did anything for anyone else. He never thought about anybody else. And there was other things going on. And they had gone to, I think, a doctor's appointment. And then on the way back, he asked if they could get ice cream. And she said, sure, it's right on our way. It's not a problem. And they pulled into the spot, and he gets out of the car. She waits. And 2 seconds later, he comes back and he goes, Mom, they have your favorite flavor. Do you want? And she goes, no, and she's telling the story. I want you to know, I wasn't in the car. So she's relaying the story. And she goes, no, it's fine. I don't want any. And he goes, and I'm like, oh, you can't see my face, but Stephanie and I, like,
we're cringing. We're like, oh
right?
no.
No. And she's relaying the story. And then he gets in the car and has ice cream, and he goes home. And we had a session the next day, and she goes, something about that doesn't sit right with me. And I'm like, can you tell me what you think doesn't sit right? Ever the coach.
I was like, you asked her a question instead of giving her the answer. I love that.
Ever the coach. And believe it or not, as a sidebar, my 29 and 25-year-old kids sometimes go, will you just tell me what to do? Like, I'm tired of the questions. But seriously, and she goes, I should have gotten the ice cream. I said, not only should you have just gotten the ice cream, she goes, take one bite and throw it out. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. Some of you might think it's wasteful. I don't care. Okay. I just don't. You should have said, sure, kitty cup or a small scoop, had a bite and thrown it away. But what you really should have done, I said, did you thank him? Did you praise him? Did you acknowledge him? She's like, no, I didn't. It didn't dawn on me.
Ooh.
And I said, less than you getting the ice cream. That's what I want you to do. And she goes, is it too late? I go, absolutely not. I said, she goes, when I get off this, I'm going to go downstairs. We were up, so whatever it was. And she's like, I'm going to say to him, I was thinking about yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to tell you that was so sweet of you to come back out, like, and think and recognize and remember there was so much good in that, and it needed to be recognized. And that's what I mean by, we don't look at that as a habit. We think of habits as like brushing your teeth, getting up in the morning, right? Picking up our books or our Legos. And I'm like, no, behavior is a habit.
Oh my goodness. I love that story. It just resonated with me so much. And I think it will with everyone who's listening. Yeah. I hope it does.
It's mind-blowing. We don't, I love that, because we do not think of behavior. We think of tangible. We think of actions as habits. Right? Even as adults, I'm going to get up and exercise 3 days a week. I'm going to drink less coffee. I'm going to, walk my 10,000 steps every day. We don't think of how we behave to others as a habit. And in a way, that to me is more important. So yeah, there it is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Oh, Leslie. Oh my goodness. This has been an absolute pleasure. Please let people know, where can they find out more about you and your work in Order Out of Chaos?
So when we make it very easy for you, so the name of the company is Order Out of Chaos. Website is Order OO Chaos. And there you can find our services, our classes, our social, our products. Just go there. And from there, you can go wherever you would like to go.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I always take away so much talking to you. I just enjoy it so much. So thank you. I encourage everyone to go and check out Leslie's work, Order Out of Chaos. And she said it's orderoochaos.com. So even if you just Google it, it'll pop up everywhere. So thank you again. Loved it, Leslie. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.